In his work How to Successfully Handle Manipulative People, Preston characterizes psychological manipulation as the use of undue influence, such as mental distortion and emotional exploitation, to acquire power, control, rewards, and/or privileges at the expense of the victim. The author also makes a further point about the distinction of social influence from psychological manipulation. It is stated that normally, most people experience healthy social influence in positive interactions, meanwhile many individuals are used for the benefit of others through psychological manipulation. In addition, the author mentions one of the important components of successful psychological manipulation when the manipulator purposefully establishes a power imbalance and uses the victim to further his/her agenda. The author draws attention to the significance of the 4 common characteristics a manipulative individual can have. For him, it is so important to be aware of the fact that a manipulator usually knows how to detect his target's weaknesses, and the moment they are found, they are undoubtedly used against the latter. Another characteristic feature of an individual with manipulative intentions is the ability to convince the target through shrewd machinations to give up something of himself/herself and serve the self-centered interests of the manipulator, and when the latter succeeds in taking advantage of the target, he will likely repeat the violation, until the target becomes aware of the exploitation and puts a stop to it. These traits are often flexibly switched up to fit the needs of the manipulator. Consequently, claims it more suitable to highlight the following categories of psychological manipulation: negative manipulation, which is designed to make the victim feel inferior, inadequate, insecure, and/or self-doubting, and this gives the manipulator a chance to obtain superiority; positive manipulation, intended to emotionally entice the victim in exchange for favors, concessions, sacrifices, or promises, deception and intrigue that are usually meant to enchant, awaken the curiosity or attention of the victim and alter his/her perception in order to gain more power; display of strategic helplessness, aimed at taking advantage of the victim's goodwill, guilty conscience, sense of responsibility, obligation, and inclination to protect and nurture. Proceeding from these classifications and considering the fact of frequent employment of coercion by manipulators to force others into a disadvantageous situation, proposes 14 tactics. 1. Home court advantage is a tactic which provides a manipulator more comfort in exerting greater power and control over the manipulated. The manipulator insists on meeting and talking with the target in a physical location that is preferable for him/her, that may be the manipulator's office, house, car, or any other place where he may exert greater power and control as he feels more protected and confident, whereas the target does not. 2. The manipulator may let the target speak first to establish the baseline of his/her talk and look for weakness. This technique is often applied by salespeople by asking the target general and probing questions and establishing a baseline about his/her thinking and behavior. This gives the manipulator a chance to analyze the strengths of the target and the limits of his/her possible actions. This type of inquiry with a concealed goal may occur in both commercial and personal interactions. 3. Manipulation of facts presupposes lying, excuse-making, being hypocritical, making the victims feel responsible for their own victimization, and distorting the truth through disclosing or withholding the key information. In the employment of this tactic, exaggeration and understatement are often applied as strategic components. 4. Overwhelming the target with facts and statistics which he may not be aware of is practiced by people who pretend to be the most knowledgeable and talented and enjoy intellectual bullying. This may happen in sales and financial circumstances, as well as professional talks and negotiations, social and relationship disputes when by exerting expert control over the target, the manipulator, hoping to have established her intellectual superiority, tries to persuade the target to embrace the manipulator's purpose. 5. Overwhelming the target with procedures and red tape is a technique used to defer fact-finding and truth-seeking, hide faults and vulnerabilities, and thus escape scrutiny. This is accomplished through utilizing bureaucracy, processes, regulations and bylaws, committees, and other hurdles to maintain the manipulator's power and position while making the life of the target more difficult. 6. During arguments, some individuals raise their voices and display unpleasant feelings. To increase effect, they project their voice loudly enough and accompany their anger by powerful body language, such as standing or passionate motions. If they do it on purpose, making the target cave into their pressure and give them what they want, they in fact accomplish a kind of aggressive manipulation which Ni describes as raising their voice and displaying negative emotions. 7. Negative surprise is also a manipulative tactic implemented in speech for throwing the target off and gaining a psychological edge. This might range from lowballing in a negotiation to declaring outright that the target will be unable to follow through and deliver in some way. The unexpected unfavorable information usually comes without warning, giving her little time to prepare and respond. 8. Giving no time or little time to decide is a technique often employed in classic sales and negotiation in which the manipulator forces the manipulated to make a decision before they are ready. It is thought that by exerting tension and control to the manipulated, the latter will crack and give in to the aggressor's demands. 9. Negative humor designed to poke at the target's weaknesses is sure to disempower her. Manipulators sometimes veil target. Comments on the target's appearance, the older model of her smartphone, the background and credentials, or the fact that the latter arrived 2 minutes late and out of breath are all possible examples. 10. Consistently judging and criticizing the target to make her feel inadequate is a tool in the hands of the manipulator to behave explicitly. Keeping the target off balance, the manipulator maintains supremacy by constantly marginalizing, insulting, and rejecting her. Avoiding true and constructive answers or significant methods to assist the target, the manipulator intentionally creates the idea that there is always something wrong with her and the latter is never good enough. 11. When the manipulator purposefully does not respond to the legitimate calls, text messages, emails, or other questions of the target, this silent treatment becomes a powerful psychological technique of manipulation which instills doubt and confusion in the mind of the target, thus increasing the influence of the manipulator on the target. 12. Another interesting manipulative trick on the list of Ni's manipulative tactics is the so-called pretended ignorance, which is a typical example of acting stupid when the manipulator pretends he does not comprehend what is wanted her to do. This trick is the kids' favorite and they constantly try to make use of it in their relations with adults. 13. As already mentioned above, the recipient's weak areas are constantly being targeted by a manipulator who often tries to hold someone else accountable for her pleasure, success, or failings. The manipulator coerces the target into granting unreasonable requests and demands by using the emotional vulnerabilities and susceptibility of the latter through guilt baiting, which the manipulator believes to be more rational and effective than straightforward blaming. 14. Intentional exaggeration or fabrication of personal difficulties or weaknesses, playing a helpless victim in order to garner compassion and favor is also considered a manipulative tactic described by Ni as victimhood. This is practiced to take advantage of the victim's goodness, guilty conscience, feeling of responsibility and obligation, or protective and nurturing instincts in order to extract disproportionate advantages and concessions. It seems of utmost necessity to mention that skilled manipulators can use just about any behavior to con and deceive, and therefore it will be useful to draw a clear line between the manipulative tactics the author neatly presents. 1. Evasion and diversion, which manipulators use by answering the questions for short, i.e., giving answers that are not complete. The target needs to think about it for a while to understand that if someone appears to be sidestepping or bypassing a problem in some way, avoiding a topic, or refusing full transparency, it does not mean they merely are nervous or justifiably cautious or guarded. They might be purposefully evasive in order to manipulate, particularly that manipulators are very skilled at shifting the target's attention to something unexpected and diverting the focus of interest. 2. Distortions, inconsistencies, and calculation of omissions, which are most successful when subtle and hidden, and are effective methods for someone to lie. Hence, manipulate in this case is to repeat a number of totally factual, verifiable facts while purposefully leaving out a critical piece of information that would cast an altogether different light on things. 3. Rationalizations and excuses is a tactic which is employed by some individuals who appear to have an answer for everything, but all of a sudden, their explanations no longer make sense. Thus, it is very important to be cautious when someone explains events or gives justifications for doing particular things, and not to take everything at their face value. Otherwise stated, when things do not appear to add together, one needs to trust her intuition. There is no need to be scared of asking clarifying questions. However, creative excuse-making may also be a totally intentional and deliberate technique to make one believe a person does not do anything wrong or has a just cause to do something that appears wrong, or has too many answers for actions that one finds disturbing in any manner. 4. Minimization and magnifying is a tactic that is normally used to minimize or magnify the effect of information, dependent on the purpose of the manipulator. This strategy is more widely used in business performances. 5. Aiming to gain the target's trust, manipulators skillfully turn on their charm to achieve their goal, for they know very well that seduction is one of the reliable tactics in the pursuit of their objective. The more cunning a manipulator is, and the keener she is on taking advantage of the target through deceiving them, the more cautious they are about currying their favor. At times, of course, the manipulator may look extremely real, however an experienced observer can see right through the deception. 6. Conscientious people desire to do things right, and if someone invites them to feel guilty about doing or failing to do something, or humiliated about what they have done, they are more likely to be driven to put things right. When the intended target of manipulation has a well-developed conscience founded on empathy for others, shaming and blaming as manipulation tactics can be practiced rather successfully through pressing their guilt and shame buttons, and this can take the manipulator very far. Buss identifies 6 types of manipulative methods used by manipulators to get things done the way they want. 1. Charm tactic. Manipulators employ charm techniques to obtain what they want by praising or charming their target in such a way that the latter does not suspect the manipulator of any wrongdoing. They are flattered, and this appeals to them, so they blindly follow the manipulator's instructions. This is a common strategy in which individuals act in this manner anytime they require or desire anything from the other. 2. Silent treatment. When manipulators ask/tell someone to do something but they are rejected, they employ the silent treatment method to force the individual to do what they are told, or else they would be ignored. This can also be considered a kind of blackmail. If you don't do this, I won't talk to you. 3. Coercion tactic. Coercion method is employed when manipulators fail to get things done as intended because their target has rejected them. Thus, the manipulator must take efforts to attain his aim by demanding, yelling, shouting, and even verbally assaulting the victim as many times as necessary until their demands are satisfied and their goals are achieved. This may also be viewed as a type of psychological manipulation. 4. Reason tactic. When one needs others to follow, believe, or do what he says, reason tactic comes to help. The manipulator gives reasons why the target should do what he is told to. As a result, he or she offers a very meaningful rationale to others while concealing the known facts from the listeners. Clearly, if he tells the full truth, many others would realize that this person is untrustworthy and that it would be foolish to follow in her footsteps. Thus, manipulators provide arguments that are enticing to others but are not fully true. 5. Regression tactic. Manipulators employ this type of strategy when they are first denied. If none of the other techniques succeeds, they will turn to this one. They make a funny expression and bother the target until he or she cannot take it any longer and has to perform what is asked to. 6. Debasement tactic. This tactic is employed when the manipulator has to degrade himself or behave in a very modest manner in order to get affection from the target and have him, her accomplish what he or she has requested them to do.